The night was thick with fog, and the full moon cast otherworldly shadows over the remnants of Old Haven Carnival. Once a beacon of joy and laughter, it now lay in ruin, its rusting rides and tattered banners a testament to the passage of time. The carnival's long-abandoned state had not deterred a group of thrill-seeking friends from making their way through the broken gates. To them, it was not a place of despair, but an adventure waiting to unfold. "Are you sure this is a good idea?" asked Jess, her voice tinged with unease as she peered through the cracked entrance. "Come on, Jess, we'll have fun," Kevin replied, his flashlight beam bouncing off the broken pavement. "It's just an old carnival. What's the worst that could happen?" Kevin's enthusiasm was contagious, and despite her reservations, Jess found herself being pulled along by the rest of the group. Ryan, the daredevil, Mia, the skeptic, and Ben, the joker. Together, they were a tight-knit group, united by a love for adventure and a penchant for finding themselves in precarious situations. The carnival was barren, its rides silent and still. The Ferris wheel loomed in the distance, its once bright colors faded to a dull gray, and the carousel's horses, frozen in mid-gallop, looked like a scene from a horror movie. The air was thick with the scent of mildew and decay. "Okay, let's check out the Ferris wheel first," Ryan suggested, his eyes gleaming with excitement. "I heard it's the most iconic part of this place." The group approached the Ferris wheel, its towering presence casting elongated shadows in the moonlight. The massive structure creaked under the weight of years of neglect, and the cabin swayed ominously with each gust of wind. A chill ran down Jess's spine as she noticed the way the cabins seemed to sway back and forth, though there was no breeze. "Doesn't this place give you the creeps?" Mia asked, her voice little more than a whisper. "It's just your imagination," Ben said, laughing. "Besides, we came here for a thrill, remember? So, let's get on." Despite her growing unease, Jess followed her friends up the steps to the base of the Ferris wheel. The metal groaned under their weight, and the rusted bolts looked as if they might give way at any moment. Kevin, ever the leader, led the way, and soon they found themselves climbing into one of the creaky cabins. "Does anyone have a flashlight?" Jess asked, trying to peer through the small, grimy windows. "Here," Ryan said, tossing her one, "just in case." The cabin door shut with a metallic clang, and the friends were plunged into near darkness. Kevin fumbled with a rusty lever, trying to get the Ferris wheel moving. With a loud screech, the wheel began to turn, its motion slow and jerky. "Hey, this isn't so bad," Ben said, trying to lighten the mood. "We get a great view from up here as the Ferris wheel rose higher. The fog below seemed to thicken, swallowing the carnival grounds in an eerie haze." Jess felt a growing sense of dread, a feeling that they were being watched. She glanced over at Mia, who was staring intently at the ground below. "Are you okay?" Jess asked. Mia didn't answer. Instead, she pointed, her face pale with fear. "Look." Jess followed her gaze and saw a shadowy figure standing by the carousel, its form barely discernible in the fog. The figure appeared to be watching them, its presence unnervingly still. "Guys, I think we're not alone," Jess said, her voice shaking. "Relax," Ryan said, trying to sound confident. "It's probably just a stray." But as the Ferris wheel reached its highest point, a sudden, loud bang echoed through the air, causing the entire structure to shudder violently. The friends screamed as the cabin lurched, and for a moment, Jess feared they would be thrown from their precarious perch. Then, as quickly as it had started, the Ferris wheel came to a halt, leaving them stranded at the top. The shadowy figure was now nowhere to be seen. "What the hell was that?" Ben asked, his voice trembling. "I don't know, but we need to get out of here," Jess said urgently, in the pitch blackness of the cabin. Jess's heart raced. She felt a cold draft and heard the faintest whisper of something moving outside. Suddenly, the cabin door burst open, and they were hit by a blast of icy wind. The friends scrambled out, their breaths coming in panicked gasps. The fog seemed to part, revealing a chilling sight. Mia's flashlight lay on the ground, its beam flickering intermittently. Her body was nowhere to be seen, but a dark stain on the pavement marked where she had fallen. "She's gone," Ben cried, his voice breaking. They searched frantically, calling out for Mia, but there was no response. The carnival was eerily silent, the rides standing as silent witnesses to their growing terror. "I have a bad feeling about this place," Jess said, her eyes scanning the shadows. "We need to stick together and get out." The group decided to head towards the carnival's exit, but as they moved, they noticed that the fog seemed to close in around them. making it hard to see more than a few feet ahead. The laughter and joy that once filled the carnival grounds were replaced by a heavy silence, punctuated only by the occasional creak of metal and the distant moan of the wind. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the night, followed by a strangled cry. Jess turned to see Ben's flashlight lying on the ground, its beam casting erratic patterns. Ben was nowhere to be seen. Ben, where are you? Jess called, her voice cracking with fear. The group's search for Ben was frantic but fruitless. The fog seemed to conspire against them, growing thicker with each passing minute. The carnival's twisted remnants loomed around them like the phantoms of their own fears. Ryan, now visibly shaken, clutched his flashlight tightly. We need to find a way out of here. This place is messing with our heads. As they moved through the carnival, their footsteps echoed eerily. Jess couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, and every shadow seemed to take on a life of its own. The carousel's music box, which had once been silent, now played a haunting, distorted melody, its notes mingling with the whispers of the fog. A shadow darted across their path, and Ryan's flashlight flickered out. The darkness closed in, and Jess felt a cold hand brush against her arm. She spun around, but there was nothing there. The only sound was the rapid beating of her own heart. Is this some kind of sick joke? Jess asked, trying to keep her voice steady, but there was no answer. Only the unending silence and the relentless fog. As they reached the carnival's entrance, Jess's breath caught in her throat. The gates, once broken, were now mysteriously shut tight. Panic set in as they realized they were trapped inside. We need to get out, Jess shouted, banging on the gates. Someone help us. But the carnival offered no escape. The friends were trapped, the fog pressing in on them as if to swallow them whole. The carnival, once a place of joy, had become their prison, and the shadows seemed to dance with malevolent glee. Then, out of the fog, the shadowy figure they had seen earlier appeared once more. It moved with unnatural speed, and Jess's blood ran cold as she recognized the hollow, empty eyes of the figure. Ryan, in a final act of bravery, stepped forward, confronting the figure. What do you want from us? The figure remained silent, its presence growing ever closer. With a final, chilling shriek, it lunged at Ryan, and the darkness swallowed him whole. Jess and Kevin were left alone, their friends gone, their hope dwindling. The fog thickened, and the carnival seemed to close in around them, its twisted rides and shadowy corners becoming their final torment dot in a last desperate bid for escape. Jess grabbed Kevin's hand, and together, they ran towards the only remaining beacon of hope, the Farris Wheel. They scrambled up the steps, their breaths coming in ragged gasps. At the top, they looked out over the carnival, the fog swirling below them like a living entity. The shadowy figure stood beneath the Farris Wheel, its gaze fixed on them with a cold, unfeeling intensity. We have to get out of here, Jess cried, her voice breaking. But as the Farris Wheel creaked to a stop once more, Jess and Kevin found themselves alone, the carnival's twisted rides standing as silent witnesses to their fate. The figure moved closer, its presence an inescapable darkness dot in the end. The old Haven Carnival had claimed them all. The once lively grounds were now a place of eternal night, where the echoes of laughter were replaced by the whispers of the fog and the shadows that danced. If you enjoy horror-based short stories like this one, please consider following and leaving a like. And as always, have a wonderful evening.